Have you ever stopped to think about how we make sense of the giant, complicated world of industry? You know, from a tiny workshop to a huge tech campus, there's this kind of hidden logic to where things get made and why. So let's dive in and unpack the geographer's toolkit for figuring out how we classify manufacturing. Okay, we're going to start our journey right here. This is a buzzing torch factory in 1960s Hong Kong. Back then, this city was pretty much the workshop of the world. Just look at this scene for a second. The rows and rows of workers, the whole assembly line in motion. This one picture, it tells such a powerful story about an entire era of industry. So yeah, we're zeroing in on this exact time and place as our starting point. And this isn't just about a cool old photo. This is our case study. It's what's going to help us build a framework to understand pretty much any industry anywhere in the world. But how do we actually do that? Right? How do we talk about what's happening in this factory in a way that's actually useful? I mean, just saying, oh, they're making torches doesn't really cut it. We need a much more systematic way to classify it, to really get to the heart of what it is. And that's exactly where a geographer's toolkit comes into play. You see, geographers and economists, they use this set of classifications to pick industries apart. Think of it like a bunch of different lenses, and each one gives us a new, really valuable perspective. Let's start with the big, fundamental ones first. So first up, you've got your primary industries. These are the ones that pull raw materials straight from the earth or the sea. We're talking about farming, mining, fishing, that kind of thing. They are the absolute bedrock of the economy. And then you have secondary industries. Now, this is the one that's super important for us today. These industries take all those raw materials and transform them into something more valuable. This is the world of making things. This is manufacturing. And our Hong Kong torch factory, it fits right in this box. And just to round out the picture, there's the tertiary industry. This is all about services. We're talking everything from the truck driver who delivers the torches to the store that actually sells them. These three sectors, primary, secondary, and tertiary, they give us our basic map of the whole economy. But, just saying something is secondary manufacturing is still way too broad. To get more specific, we can classify industries by looking at what goes into the factory, the inputs, and what comes out, the outputs. So one of the most common ways to do this is to talk about light versus heavy industry. Heavy industries, like iron and steel, they use these massive, bulky raw materials to create, you guessed it, heavy products. Light industries, on the other hand, like the textile and electronics factories all over 1960s Hong Kong, they use lighter stuff to make smaller, lighter products. It really just comes down to weight and bulk. Now, this is where it gets really interesting, the difference between labor and capital. If you think back to that factory photo, what's the main thing you see? It's people, tons of them. That's what makes it a labor-intensive industry, where the biggest input is human work. The total opposite is a capital-intensive industry, like, say, a modern chemical plant, which relies on a huge investment in crazy expensive machinery instead of a big workforce. Okay, so now we have a pretty good idea of what kind of industry we're looking at, but the next huge question is, why is it located where it is? And the answer, a lot of the time, comes down to one simple thing: cutting the cost of transportation. Let's see how that works. This brings us to two more really important categories. You have raw material-oriented industries, like a sugar mill, that absolutely have to be close to their source materials. And why is that? Well, because it's way cheaper to ship the small amount of refined sugar than it is to haul tons and tons of bulky sugarcane. Then, on the flip side, you have market-oriented industries, like a bakery or a soda bottling plant. They need to be close to their customers because the final product is heavier or bulkier or just goes bad faster than the ingredients did. All right, now we're about to make a massive jump forward in time. The world of that 1960s Hong Kong factory has changed so dramatically. The whole logic that used to define where an industry would pop up is being replaced by a completely new set of rules. And wow, does this show that change? Just look at this chart. From a peak of almost 900,000 manufacturing workers in 1980, the number in Hong Kong just plummets. This isn't just data on a screen. This is the story of a massive economic transformation. The old way was fading out, and something totally new is taking its place. And this is what took its place. Welcome to Silicon Valley, California, the new heart of global industry. It doesn't really look like a factory district, does it? It's this sprawling, interconnected web of campuses and offices and research labs. So clearly the old rules don't really apply here. What are the things that determine where an IT industry sets up shop?
It's definitely not about being close to a coal field or a port. It's about something, well, something you can't really touch.
And that key idea is called agglomeration economies. This is basically the huge advantage that companies get just by being physically close to each other. It creates this rich ecosystem, a deep pool of specialized talent, a super fast flow of new ideas, and a whole network of support services, all crammed into one place. And here is a perfect, real-world example of that. When Google was designing its giant headquarters, they didn't just build a bunch of isolated offices. They created what they call little clusters, specifically to force the sharing and development of ideas. They are literally building agglomeration right into their own campus. It's amazing.
So let's put it all together and just look at the difference. On the left, you have the old model, a single factory, packed with people, defined by physical stuff going in and out. And on the right, you have the new model, a huge, interconnected hub, defined by the flow of information and the power of being close to each other. I mean, the contrast is just night and day.
So why did we just go through all these terms and classifications? What's the point? Well, because understanding these ideas is about so much more than just, passing a geography test. It's really about understanding the world that we all live in. And here's the bottom line. These tools, they help us understand enormous economic shifts, like the one we just saw from Hong Kong's factory floors to Silicon Valley's campuses. They explain why our cities look the way they do, and they give us a way to grasp how the very nature of work itself is changing over time. The industries change, but the tools we use to analyze them, they're still incredibly powerful. And that, of course, brings us to the future. As new technologies like AI and automation create industries that we can barely even imagine right now, what new classifications are we going to need? What's the key locational factor for an industry that exists completely in the cloud? That's the big question we're left to think about.